Hello and welcome to Henry V Behind the Curtain. In this documentary we hope to enlighten you to the part of theatre you don't regularly see. We'll show you the cast and rehearsals both in their rehearsal room and in the theatre, and we plan to show you each department of the technical team at work and their roles within the production, hopefully underlining the scale and work of putting a show together. But first we'd like to tell you a little bit about the history behind the story of Henry V. As some of you will know, Henry V by William Shakespeare depicts the events leading up to the Battle of Agincourt, which King Henry V commanded. He boosted his men's morale by giving the famous St. Crispin's Day speech, but the play isn't just based on the battle, it's also about the relationship between England and France during the 100 Years' War, and some say it's a crucial point of the war. We managed to grab the director Russell Lucas away from his busy rehearsal schedule, with Henry V to ask him a few questions. Is this your first time directing Shakespeare?
No, it's my second in full production. I've directed bits before in reviews and exams and things like that. The second one, the first one was Titus Andronicus, just last year. So I'd always stayed away, not on purpose. Just I tend to go for new writing.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the way it's gone.
And do you have a particular directing style?
I think I'm an actor-focused director. That's what I would probably, if I was to give myself a title, actor-focused director. Yeah, because I'm much more about what are the actors' ideas, and yeah, getting them to be liberated and come in and just play, go a bit nuts as well, and then start to shape their ideas, but based on the text, obviously. Don't just make everything up. But yeah, based on Henry V, so we'll look at history, images, colour, art, music, dance, whatever, and then I'll start to throw improvisations at them, and so yeah.
And as director, how influential is the history and context of Henry V?
Context for sure, because it's about honour and war, and the countries. So those type of things I think are a given. I wouldn't necessarily set Henry V on the Titanic.
Yeah.
I think that would be suicide. I didn't know when we started whether it was going to be a classical, traditional version, but as we got into rehearsals and I saw what you had in stores and costumes and stuff like that, I was then inspired by various props, carpet, costumes, and it was much easier if we use what we've got. So then going back to the playing idea, I then brought all of that into the rehearsal room, and then they all played. So ironically, before the end of the first day, we knew that it was going to be a traditional presentation, but it's not in a lot of other ways. I mean, you've seen as well, because it's in a traverse setting. That's a challenge in itself. And we have this kind of a rule that we only use live sound as much as possible. And yeah, we're mucking around with the text here and there because we have to do a 2-hour version here, whereas Henry V is 3 hours plus probably. So we've had to edit it. But the problem is when you edit, you then lose the dramaturgy of a whole play. So what I've had to do is take bits and do that to make sense in our little 2-hour version, as it were. So yeah, it's probably my style is hopefully a little bit rogue. Or rebellion, hopefully. Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
That's right. Cool.
And on your head, turning the widow's teeth.
We got access to film one of the cast rehearsals. We'll join them in week 3 of their rehearsal process. We managed to chat with Becca Arthur, who plays Henry V. Hello.
Hello.
Did you do any initial research before you started rehearsing with Henry?
Yes, I looked deeply into the family, his family, on both the English side and the French side, to really see the connections, because when it comes to he's trying to get the throne, so the family and the inheritance of being in the next heir to a country. So that's a lot to do with the families, so that's where most of my research went into for the play.
Is it different playing a non-fictional character like Henry to playing a fictional character?
I think it's different because you have to honour the history. You need to know when this person was born, know their upbringing, know where they sit in society. So I think there's a lot of research on both parts, but you have to be honourable to the estate. So that's where the difference is.
And it's quite common for a lot of people to struggle with the lines from a Shakespeare play. How do you cope?
Well, I'm actually a classical actor. Like, I enjoy classical acting, so it's actually not that difficult for me because I'm interested in picking out the lines and kind of dissecting the language, which is quite pleasurable for me, which is weird. But so it sticks in my head.
Okay.
A lot easier.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
We also chatted with Florence, who plays Alice and Pistol.
Alright, mate. Talk us through the rehearsal routine on a daily basis, if you can.
Basically, we normally start off with just exercises as a group, to get characters and stuff. Like before we got our characters, we'd just do exercises for the director to see, what actors he wants to play a certain part. Then basically once we've got our parts, we normally go into experimental type thing. I mean, during this process, we've been doing 1 to 2 hour sessions of being in our characters in different scenarios for the full 2 hours with no interaction or anything like that. So it's been very, very strange, to start off with.
And do any of the rehearsals ever seem to drag or become boring when you sat there for a while?
From time to time, acting, basically you get paid for just waiting around, it tends to happen. But no, when you're normally just sitting there, you go through your lines, you do whatever you can to prepare for the next scene or what you're going to do next. So,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Of long vanished days, nor from the dust of old.
The cast will continue to rehearse here until production week. From there on, they shall rehearse in the theatre space.
Breakfast to make you friends, and we'll be all three sworn brothers to France.
We therefore have great cause of thankfulness.
Now, of course, a production isn't just made with directors and actors. We will now turn to look at the technical team, which is led by Terry Weston, their production manager.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Could you talk us through your role as production manager?
Well, as production manager, I pretty much just manage the production, and I'm in charge of scheduling, budget, and then I run the get out and get in for the show on production week. But also if I'm needed anywhere else, so at the minute I'm helping out on props.
Okay.
So if any department needs a little push or a little hand, then I'll just go from each one and help out.
Cool. Have you done any previous research for the show, i.e. into your management role or into the show itself?
Yeah, I've done some research into my management role, of course. As part of my module, it's actually part of that, so I've done that. And I've done some research into the show, because you can't really manage people without knowing what you're managing.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And do you have a particular management style?
Well, really, I like to set up sort of basic groundwork, sort of a schedule and a plan, and then let people follow that in their own departments, and then I'll just help out when necessary. So all the groundwork's laid, and just let them go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel Walters and Gary Chapman are both sharing the workload of the set team. Daniel is a set designer, and Gary is a set constructor.
Dan, can you walk us through your role as set designer?
Set designer, I have to turn the studio space into something magical. And the way I've chosen to do this is we are looking closely at creating different textures on the floor using projection.
Did you have any other initial ideas for that, or how many ideas you got through to get to that one?
This is my latest idea. We've had several other ideas of how we could create a multi-floor, multi-texture floor, and the first design was a large conveyor belt which would have multiple canvas floors that we could rotate. We could move the conveyor belt, and each floor would change.
Finally, do you have faith in your design?
I'm working on faith, and we've been grateful that we've had some extra time to prepare for this, and we've been doing some trials, and hopefully over this final week we will be able to try some more with the computer software, and the projection will work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Gary. Could you walk us through your role on Henry V?
As my role is defined as set construction, I follow the lines of the designer and do all the jobs that he may require assistance on. So I don't take a role as I don't design certain things. Dan will pitch me an idea and I then take it away from him, so it leaves a lot of stress and pressure off him. So we share the workload, but he obviously gives me the first initial design, idea, and I just make that work and bring it to life.
So is the construction side the bit you prefer most rather than designing putting down on paper?
Yeah, definitely faux show. A lot, it's all good going to try and design something, but it's so much added extra pressure that some people, I've done a design role before and that worked well and it all panned out, but it was in an area that I'm comfortable in, and it was on a subject that I was comfortable in as well. With us being a drama, Shakespeare and stuff, it's something that I'm not overly, sure of.
Yeah.
So it's been easier for me to take a smaller role as in set construction rather than a design route.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, the sound designer and the props designer have been combined into one role due to the size of production and the size of the crew. And this role is held by Jonathan Keeley.
Hello, Johnny.
Hello.
Do you tell us a bit about your role on Henry V?
I'm in charge of designing and building the props and designing the sound for the show as well.
It's quite a challenging role balancing the two.
Initially I wanted to combine the two into one indistinguishable department, but as the show has progressed, the sort of natural progression of the creative direction of the show has meant that the two departments are very much two very different departments. So the sound and the props have sort of split apart as the show's gone on.
Are you finding you're able to balance the two workloads equally, or is it one takes over and then one comes in later on?
Yeah, I think it's been a bit tricky to sort of juggle the two departments as they've sort of come apart into two very different departments. I've tried to sort of move between them to try and make sure both departments are progressing at at a rate where they will be ready in time for the show. I think props, I did that quite well, but I kind of left sound a bit and sort of relied on doing a little less, but still having it ready for the show. So I think probably sound, could have done more, coming from a background where I've done more sound before. I probably could have done more for the design for this show, but props I'm quite pleased with, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Alright, thank you.
Conor McIntyre is Henry V's lighting designer.
Good afternoon, Conor. Could you walk us through your role as lighting designer?
Basically, I make everybody seen. I add to the
description.
Well, it's pretty obvious, really, isn't it? But in all seriousness, I give an artistic dimension to what you're seeing on stage. I help bring out what they want to bring out in their acting, and it just make it look better.
What is the overall effect you want your lighting design to have on an audience or in general?
This one's quite, I don't know, I've always kind of seen this one as a bit understated almost. It's there, but you're not necessarily noticing it's there. There's no active flashing rubbish or anything, there's no flashy effects that aren't needed. It's all stuff that I want, that the director wants. It's all very, I wouldn't say simple, but in a way it is. It's very, simple, that's probably a good way of putting it.
So it differs, you say it differs from other shows?
Yes, yeah it does.
In a lot, or does
Well, the fact that the show is Traverse means it's very different to most, especially with the orientation of the stage.
And did you do any research into how previous productions of Henry V was lit?
I did a little bit, but at the same time I didn't want to be influenced too much by what I'd seen in images, in videos, etc. So yes, there was obviously the basic research, but I didn't want to go too much in case I went, I want that idea, It's not my idea, but I'm going to use that because.
No, doing research, did you have a better understanding of what you wanted?
Yeah, it did help me a lot. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for your time.
Cool.
Joseph Reynolds is a deputy stage manager, also known as a DSM.
Hello.
Hi.
Could you talk us through your role as deputy stage manager?
Yeah. So as a deputy stage manager or DSM, my job is to be the liaison point between basically the director, the production company, to the technical creative team. So I'm the one who delegates what props we need, what effects, sound effects, anything we need to require, and then I'm also responsible for handing out rehearsal notes and the call times to both sides of the company.
Okay. Do you enjoy the atmosphere in our rehearsal room coming from technical aspects?
It is different. I mean, the long hours don't change. If anything, a bit more because I have to make sure I'm here to prep the room for the company. But it is nice. It's good to see the creative possibility from another angle once again, because it's different because we think so practically and logically, whereas the creative company always seems to have like these wild ideas and you sort of go, how can I create that? So it's quite a nice atmosphere to walk into.
Okay. And what made you choose deputy stage manager over a technical role like set building?
I think playing to my strengths was a key point, but I think it's that because it's still quite a technical role because you've still got to also think of how it would work, because you can have a director say, oh, we're going to create this tent but it's only using this and this, how would you do that? And you sort of go, well, how would we, how would we affix like a fabric to a pole, or right, how do we get like a map of France, currently on a wall, how do we change from like a scene in England to a scene in France and then to a field? So it's nice because then you've still got to think how technically you would do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christina Storite is a costume designer for Henry V.
Hello, Christina.
Hello.
Can you tell us a little bit about your role on Henry V as costume designer?
As a costume designer, I'm responsible for cast measurements for dress runs, costume fittings, make sure everything moves smoothly with the costume.
Yeah. With this being a time period, based on the 5th, did you do much research into the clothing and stuff?
Well, I've done a 15th century time period costume research. It's mostly medieval style costumes. That's my costumes are based on this time period.
With doing the research, does the inspiration for the costumes come easier than with just reading the script?
Oh, definitely was easier. I've done some research online. I found lots of information about medieval costume, which made me easier to create costumes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've shown some insight into pre-production, now I'd like to show you Production Week. Production Week is kicked off with what is known as Fit Up. This involves the entire technical crew coming together to put all their areas into a space. The Fit Up can take place over a number of days depending on the scale of production. Once the fit-up period is finished, the cast can then enter the space to begin their first runs, followed by a technical rehearsal and dress rehearsal.